Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriter, Straight Game TV. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Do me a favor, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And like I always say, if you want to be one of the first people notified when I drop some of this straight game, please do me a favor and click on what appears to be that little bell notification. Let's get into some of this straight game.
Life is like those cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. It's your boy DELRAY, Richardson, platinum artist, platinum songwriters. Ladies and gentlemen, I got something I want to, a lot of news organizations have been running with this audio of Diddy talking to, or leaving a message for Daphne and Joy, ladies and gentlemen, whom everybody has found out by one way or another that it's 50 Cent's baby mama, right? I'm going to show you something because a lot of people have not been really truly paying attention to what's going on, if you will. And so that we are clear and we can understand what it is that's being that's going on or attempted to be pushed over on us, like, you know, through the weekend, right? So they got the audio. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it like this, and then I'm going to show you, because it's very important that we understand what's happening here, right? I'm going to show you why the release of the audio in the context in which they're trying to use it is not true. And like I said, you know, they say two things can be true at the same time, but I'm going to show you right now how that's it's just so misleading. The conversation is what it is, and no doubt. But let me put some context to it as I understand it, and I think most of us who've understood and dealt with a woman on a level where you saying something like that to her and what it actually entails. So I want y'all to pay attention closely. Watch this. So here's a rundown of the conversation. Diddy saying, you know, he's talking to him, leaving a message, basically saying, yo, you better get on your job. That's all it is. Combs also said, because you got me on my job. Basically, Jane testified that she understood. This is what she said she understood. She understood her job was taking care of him, being good to him, and making sure he was happy, which included sexual encounters. She said that his job was taking care of her financially. That's what Diddy meant by saying that he was on his job. And what did you understand Sean was communicating to you when he said he was going to disappear on you and you would have a rude awakening? Prosecutors Maureen Comey asked. She said, I was pretty alarmed about the message. Jane responded, it was just really cold, and like, it's true that at any moment he can just do that if he wanted to. She clarified that meant that Combs could cut me off, right? Jane also testified that starting in 2023, Combs began to give her $10,000 monthly allowance, right? An allowance, listen, ladies, an allowance of what she used to pay for her home, for her and her son. Jane said on the stand that Combs still pays her rent today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, one may take that as, oh, he's saying, you know, you better get on your job. And I can understand how most people would see that right now, understanding what's going on in the courtroom. But there's one key part to that that nobody is really looking at. And like I said, I'm going to go here right now with this. Check this out now. So she says that, right? But listen, I want you to understand something. This is a day, this was, what was that, yesterday? And she testified, and this is testimony, live from shout out to Inner City Press. She testified. Jane basically said, I had promised him an all-star party. The prosecutor asked, what's that? Jane, she said, I'd bring in the top 3 guys, all in the same night. AUSA, why? Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the prosecutor asked her why. She said, it was my lover, and he liked that. I told him I have to be awake at 8 a.m. Sunday. I said the last time I got sick, right? Okay, now check it out. So we understand that she's basically telling the prosecutor that she wanted to have an all-star party for Diddy, meaning bring in all the 3 guys that she liked. See, in this situation, there was some guys that Diddy would pick that he likes to do what he liked to do and watch her and whatever their personal business bedroom thing was that we are now being privy to hearing in this RICO case, right? And so when she says that's what she's going to do, you got to understand, Diddy's not telling her that's what he has. She said, I wanted to, give him an all-star party. This is what she wanted to do. It wasn't something that he was asking her to do. And another thing, in that conversation that he was having, right? He was basically saying, I'm not threatening you. He's basically saying, hey, look, every time she get mad, she would block him, not call him, not return his calls, and all of those things. Basically, what he was explaining to her is like, look, I'm not going through that. You know what I mean? I'm not dealing with all of this emotional stuff that you're trying to take me through. You know what I mean? I'm handling my business. Like I say, I take care of you. You my girl. You know what I mean? Not only that, but you see, in fact, that she said she used the allowance that Diddy gave her, right, to pay her bills and to take care of her son. Now, which the son is not even his son, right? And so he's not being judgmental. He's not being petty from that perspective. He's basically trying to communicate. And you didn't hear him say, oh, B, you better do what I say do, or ba-da-da-da-da, and this, that, and that. And he's like, yo, I'm not threatening you. And he's talking and not knowing that one day he'd be sitting in the courtroom actually listening to a voice message that he sent to her from a real perspective, basically talking about a real relationship situation. And I want to keep you right there for a minute. Check this out. Now, if the fear of what she thought would happen, or what they're trying to describe and point and picture it as in court, if that were true, right? Let me tell you some things that are not happening, that happened in the Cassie situation. We've seen the Intercontinental Hotel video, right? So by seeing the Intercontinental Hotel video, we know that Diddy has the propensity for violence against women. Point blank, period, right? There's been witnesses that have come to court and testified that they've seen Diddy hit Cassie, blah, blah, blah. What we have not heard, understandably so, in this situation is that allegedly Daphne and Joy, if that's who it is on the stand, right? Because nobody's really confirmed. People have been saying it, but they're saying it's Daphne and Joy, a 50 Cent's baby mama, right? You've never heard her say one time that Diddy put his hands on her. You heard her say he get agitated, he get mad, he get whatever, but not one time yet, don't know if it's coming, not one time yet have you heard him say or her say that he's been physically violent with her, right? So now, for whatever reason, I can give you the reason I think that he know that even though her and 50 Cent not really seeing eye to eye, that is 50 Cent baby mama, and I think that it would be a problem because through the love of 50 have for his child, and that being his child's mother, there would be repercussions. You know what I mean? Just flat out. You know what I'm saying? I mean, they might not be seeing eye to eye, but that's my son's mom. You know what I mean? And, you know, for whatever reason, that's me seeing it the way that I see it and why there hasn't or wasn't violence like there was in the Cassie situation, right? I could be wrong. But you tell me what you think in the chat. But check this out. So now, she's saying the prosecution is basically trying to point it out and point out that, you know, so what do you take that he's saying right here when he says that, you know, he can get frustrated and, you know, we can end this and get in it at any time. She basically saying that, what? Let's go back to it. She basically saying what? She said that she clarified that meant that Combs could cut me off, meaning cut off financial support for her at any time. Now, once again, one can take that and read into that what they will, but that's not what he said. He basically saying, hey, look, you know, you better get on your job. And meaning what she said, taking care of him, being with him and doing, you know, the things that they like to do, whether it was go to Turks and Caicos, whether it was go to here, go to there. Most people have described and tried to paint the picture that Diddy gave her $10,000 to go to Turks and Caicos to be with other guys. No, Diddy made somewhat what he called a love contract. She couldn't be his wife. You know what I mean? He didn't want to marry her, right? He understood that she had a child and all of these other things, right? So now, giving her $10,000 a month in allowance, she would use to pay for her home and for her son, right? Not Diddy's son, her son, an allowance, right? Now, if that was the case, why would he pay her $10,000 a month when he could have paid her $10,000 an encounter, or $1,200 an encounter, or $2,000 an encounter, as if he didn't have any kind of feelings? See, they're trying to paint he didn't have any kind of feelings, but Daphne basically saying that, you know what, I seen that, understood that her job, and we know how we talk in our community, yo. You know, you talking to your girl like, yo, you ain't on your job, you ain't handling your business, you know what I mean? You know, whether that mean you ain't cooking, whether that mean you ain't doing the things that I'm asking you to do, whether she's bucking on you, whether whatever, and you know that you taking care of her, right? Her every need, you bought the car, you paid the bills, you do all of these things. Like, yo, you ain't on your job, you ain't being my woman and loving on me like I need you to love on me, or whatever their relationship required. But check this out. So, because now they're trying to say, well, what do you take that to mean? She clarified that could mean that he could cut me off at any time. But watch this. Let me show you something, because this is very important, right? Here's other testimony, ladies and gentlemen. I want you to pay attention to this real closely. Right. The prosecutor said he started paying your rent. Jane, yes. Right? Now, he didn't have to pay her rent. I'm sure she probably could pay her rent or whatever money she was getting for her son from her son, her baby daddy, has money. Don't know what their financial situation is as far as child support or whatever. But I'm sure hopefully she was handling her business before she met Diddy, right? Told him that she met somebody, or she was dealing with somebody that he didn't really get along. So she was up front. Diddy was up front. But look, Comey, he started paying your rent. Jane, yes. The prosecutor asked, who's paying your rent now? Sean. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is going on in the court. And then when they take that audio and they put it out, see, I like to have some kind of understanding, some kind of clarity about the situation. You understand what I'm saying? I don't like to be misled in the media and them, you know, trying to mislead you, misguide you as to what they want you to think. Now, if he wanted to cut her off, he in jail right now. She's testifying on the behalf of the prosecutor. And the prosecutor asked her, who's paying your rent now? Sean? Now, ladies and gentlemen, tell me, does that make any goddamn sense, what they're trying to imply in regards to this? Does it make any sense? She's saying that basically that he could cut me off. She clarified that to mean that Sean Combs could cut me off. Right now, Sean Combs is in MDC, New York City, right? And the prosecutors asked, well, who's paying your bills? Who's paying your rent now? She can't even pay her own rent now. Sean, prosecutors, what else did he pay for? My teeth, right? What do you mean? Sean didn't like my teeth. I got new veneers. He also paid to furnish the house, right? He paid to furnish the house too. My allowance just didn't do it. I used 3 credit cards. Ladies and gentlemen. So if he had a love contract, and what they're calling to be a love contract, ladies and gentlemen, did she exceed the contract? She exceeded the contract a long time ago. You just seen it. What'd you see? What'd she say? She said, Sean didn't like my teeth. I got new veneers. He also paid to furnish the house. My allowance just didn't do it. I used 3 credit cards. Jersey Rick, what's good? He ain't paying for a silence. She testifying for the prosecution right now. What you talking about, Jersey Rick? She's on the stand right now. How in the hell is he paying for her silence? It doesn't make sense. See, and I appreciate the deuce, Jersey Rick. Even you saying what you saying right now, Jersey Rick, you're conflicted with what you believe and what you understand it to be. I just gave you, they got out the tape saying, yeah, yo, you better get on your job. And if you listen to the tape, he not threatening her. He ain't saying nothing. He's saying basically the same thing that he told Cassie. Diddy understood one thing out of all of what was going on. You know what he understood? That he was the prize in the situation. I'm the prize in this situation. It ain't about power. It's about benefits. It's about security. It's about comfortability. He was the security in the situation, and he understood that. And he's basically saying, like, yo, you know what? I ain't gonna chase you around. I don't want to keep going through this emotional craziness that you do every time you want to get mad at me or whatever, right? You know, you're going to hear silence. You're just not going to hear from me no more. You know what I mean? And part of not hearing from him no more, if you don't hear from him, right? You know them bills don't get paid. You know that car don't get paid. You know that allowance don't come. You knew all of these things that were attached to the situation as it was. And so now I asked the question that I just asked a minute ago, right? Basically said they had a love contract. He paid her what? $10,000 a month. Look, let me because I mean, a lot of people, man, really, they have a problem really digesting this information now. What did she say? Jane testified that starting in 2023, Combs began to give her. Ladies and gentlemen, they have been together for since 2021. They have been seeing each other since 2021. If he was trying to get her to be some kind of working girl or whatever, they was doing they little freak off thing, because that's what he liked to do. She understood that. So it was a mutual understanding. It was consensual. It was a mutual understanding. Let's be clear, right? Jane testified that started in 2023. She only started to get $10,000 a month in allowance she used to pay for her home and pay for her son, right? Right? So he paid her rent, and on top of paying her rent, he gave her $10,000 allowance, ladies and gentlemen, right? Now, what does she say in court? What'd she say? Prosecution asked, what else did he pay for? My teeth. What do you mean? Sean didn't like my teeth. I got new veneers. He also paid to furnish the house. My allowance just didn't do it. I used 3 credit cards. So now, if we got a contract and I say I'm going to give you this much money a month for an allowance because I love you, we together, you know what I mean? You see them going places, doing things and all of this other stuff, right? She basically saying my allowance just didn't do it. So she couldn't even budget the money that he was giving her for an allowance and also paying the rent. What'd you say, Jersey Rick? You said that is what he thought, but she is a conspirator. No, I understand what you're saying, what you're trying to make it out, right? There is no conspiracy amongst consenting adults, right? She could have pleaded the 5th. What was they going to lock her up for? Right? Oh, they went and talked to the sex workers, basically threatening them, telling them, oh, yeah, you come into court, you testify. Like I said, once again, all she had to do was be quiet, but she chose to talk. But to your response to what I just said, Jersey Rick, listen to this. Check it out now, because you went right where I needed you to go. Think about it for a minute. You say she's a conspirator, right? So now, if she had a contract with Diddy, what he described as a love contract. If she had a contract with Diddy, he was giving her this money, right? And she's basically telling the prosecutor, listen, she's telling the prosecutor, what you understand that to be? When he says that, she said, I was pretty alarmed by the message, Jane responded. It was just really cold and like, it's true that any moment he can just do that if he wanted to. She clarified that meant that Combs could cut her off. Pause, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, Diddy could do whatever he wanted to. Right now, she's testifying in court against the man. And what did Comey ask her? Listen, look, what did he ask her? She said, I was promised them to have an all-star party. What's that? I'd bring in, listen, ladies, I'd bring in the 3 top guys all in the same night to have sex with them. Prosecutors asked why. Why did you do that? Why would you do that? I was with my lover and he liked that. I told him, right? So she was willing to do it because she liked it and she loved him and wanted to please him. On side of that, check it out though. Right now, as she testifies on behalf of the prosecution, I don't care what reason she's testifying for. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right? And Jersey Rick said, well, he did it to pay for her silence. No. There's other people that came to testify. He didn't pay for their silence. I don't know, whatever he tried or whatever they tried to say he tried to do. But the question is asked. What? He started paying your rent. She said yes. AUSA. Who's paying your rent now? Sean. He locked up. He been locked up for the last 6 months. He's still paying this woman rent. He in jail. But she would go and then say through a text coming, through a voice message and trying to explain what he meant in regards to that. That was taken out of context. What he was basically saying was, if you listen to the conversation, he was basically saying, yo, you can't have an attitude with me. Listen to me. Let me explain something, because a lot of people got it messed up, man. You paying for somebody's, you taking care of her. Baby, you know, you ain't got to work. You don't got to worry about it. I got you, because you got enough money to be able to do that, right? So you paying for everything for her. She gets mad. She ain't picking up her phone. You calling, she not calling back. And from what he's saying, she does this stuff all the time, right? He's basically saying, hey, look, I ain't got time to play these games. You know, right now in my life, I'm not chasing nobody. I ain't doing none of this. Boom, you know, you got me on my job. I take care of you. You know what I mean? And this is what any man would say. Usually, I'm taking care of you, doing what you, like, yo, you need to get on your job. Now, whatever that job requires, right? Whether in some relationships, you know, she ain't cooking no more. She ain't cleaning like she do. She ain't loving on him like she used to. You know what I mean? She hanging out too much with her friends. You know, she doing too much of A and not enough of B and all of these other things, right? Let me go back to what Rick's saying. Hold on, Rick, because Rick said, Diddy not dumb. Bet next month rent not paid. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that he dumb or not. All I'm saying is, if she coming in to testify against him, right? And we're going to see what happens during the cross-examination. If she coming in to testify against him, I could see where you could say, well, yeah, still paying her rent. But she coming in to testify against him, saying that she understood that work to be and all of these other things, and I understood that he could cut me off. You know what I mean? That's the. Do you see the sense of obligation? It was as if she basically saying, well, he could cut me off. Anybody could cut you off at any time. Your job could cut you off at any time. Right? This is somebody who's taking care of you, And from what she said, not I'm saying, her son, providing a place to live, food, shelter, and clothing, and all of the extra whatever goes on in their relationship. She is free to go at any time. You hear that in the conversation and what he's saying. You just not going to hear from me no more. That's not him telling her, yeah, you better get back over here and you better do X, Y, and Z. She was relying on him taking care of her. That's her problem. That's not his. So when whatever she perceived that he can cut me off at any time, well, right now, and I know it's going to come up cross-examination, well, right now, who's paying your rent now? Sean? You mean the same guy that you said that you thought from the conversation and the conversation that you heard when he was telling you, hey, you know what? You got to get on your job. You're not taking care of him. And you understand your job to be what? Taking care of him, loving him, and doing the things that y'all do. Now, what they were trying to get her to do was separate the freak off situation and make that use that as part of the job, right? Like I said, anybody, when people get divorced, like you talk to men and women that get divorced, like, why y'all get a divorce? Man, she stopped doing, it just wasn't working out. She wasn't, and he could, for lack of a better term, Caucasians really don't talk like that. She just, it just changed. It was, we just outgrew each other or whatever. You could say, well, she just wasn't on a job anymore. You know what I mean? She wasn't taking care of the kids, right? She was hanging out. She was drinking too much. She was doing, you know what I mean? She was getting high. She was doing all of these other things. Imply that you're not on your job. You know what I mean? And if that's what she understood to be, that he with the freak off thing with the other guys and all of that, she knew that since 2021. Right? She knew that since 2021. And guess what? She was with it. Why? How do I know she was with it? What did she say right here, ladies and gentlemen? What she said? She said, I had promised him an all-star party. And the prosecutor said, well, what's that? Jane, I'd bring in the top 3 guys all in the same night. And the prosecutor asked, well, why? Why would you do that? I was with my lover, and he liked that. And I liked that he liked that. And I didn't mind giving him that. So how did that turn into a job? She understood what it was. And then after he got finished watching, right, they were going to do what they needed to do. You said, did he control Misa, Kim P, just in the same way? I don't know that, Jersey Rick, because I didn't live with him. And you don't know that either. Let's be clear. We never heard about Kim Porter doing any kind of nothing of that nature. See, once again, I don't know that. You don't know it either. I don't like to make assumptions. I'm giving you straight up facts, straight game from the courtroom, with the tape that everybody pushing out there today. And I'm asking the question. Well, shit. If that's the case, if she was scared of him cutting her off, well, right now, as he sit in the defendant's chair and she sit on the witness stand, right? What's going on? What's going on? He paying her rent still. In prison, he paying her rent. Right? You know why? You know why, Jersey Rick? You know why? The simple fact of the matter is, Jersey Rick, the thing that you're missing is this. Diddy and Daphne Joy were still together when he got locked up. They were still an item. Now, listen, let's be clear. Young Miami was around. But once again, when he met Daphne Joy, he was honest and upfront with her. She, on the stand, called him a liar. In one of her notes that she had made, that the prosecution let her read, she was like, why you lie to me? And the defense objected to that based on the fact she was mad because she saw Diddy had spent time with another woman. Now, once again, these are facts, not what I'm saying. These are facts. And the defense objected to that because they objected to her calling him a liar. She said, well, we had mentioned in the beginning of their testimony, right? The fact that he was honest with her, right? the prosecution brung that out when Daphne admitted to it. She was like, he was honest with me, said he was, dating other women and things like that, right? And she was okay with it. You see what I'm saying? So, when it comes down to it, I understand, Rick, where you going at, but he said Misa and Kim have stated that in the past. Well, like I said, once again, Diddy has a type. Evidently, he like women that are codependent. Definitely not independent, or beautiful women who usually get by with the way that they look. And they basically meet guys who got money, who have the resources to be able to take care of them. Daphne was one of them. She had a baby by 50 Cent. Then she met Diddy, right? Before Cassie, started off with a record deal, boom. Doing a thing, whatever. That relationship lasted 10 some odd years, right? And so once again, like I said, I say that to say this. In the context of what people are what they're trying to put out there, we sit here every day and welcome everybody back to the chat, the people that come through during the week when we actually going live and we going through the chat. Most people don't understand. They're trying to make something that like, oh yeah, he said get on the job. You know what I mean? And take it and run it out of context. Nah, if that's the case, he wouldn't be still paying her rent. She ain't doing a job now. She damn sure ain't doing a job by taking a stand. Right? But like I said, I don't want to get ahead of myself in stating what we're looking at right here and waiting to see what happens on cross-examination. Right? Because like I said, once again, she also testified that, did you ever, and they was like, did you ever see money around and blah. She was like, yeah, where would it be? On the dresser? Well, who would pay them after they leave? Sean would pay. Listen, she was like, oh, Sean would pay, right? But look, hold on. I want you to understand something. Check this out. She said, and her testimony, she said, and Sean would pay, but I want to show you this. What does this say? She said, what? I had promised him an all-star party. Prosecutors, what's that? I'd bring the top three guys all in the same night. Not Diddy would bring, I would bring. Right. So Rick, to your what's her name? You're right. It makes her a co-conspirator because she was participating. But this is shit that's going on in their bedroom. This ain't got nothing to do. And like I said, once again, let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen. We gotta be honest about this. Look, man. Prior to 2023, they had just gave Diddy that when he was dressed in all red, him and his son, Bad Boy 50, I don't know, whatever anniversary of the records and all or whatever. And I think it was MTV, one of them channels, had just gave him some kind of honor, right? Now, there was nothing going on. No charge, no accusation, no nothing. The girl Mia, her, sending birthday wishes, making scrapbooks, and all of these things for Diddy. Prior to, let me see. Who said Doug Mack? She knows money. What she said, what did Doug Mack say? She knows money, or nothing about. She said she knows the money about to run out. She's probably lining Diddy up for a lawsuit. That's why Cassie lawyer was there to listen to his future client. Yo, thanks for the donation. Yeah. Not like I said. Now, once again, that's a thought right there, right? But like I said, when you understand what she did and what she's saying, it doesn't match up with the reality of what's going on. It's like this revisionist theory, Doug Mack. Right? It's a this is what I take it to mean now. When shit was going on, it wasn't that. Just like last year. Year before last. No, I say last year because they still was together when he got locked up. But last year, it wasn't going on like that. Why? He was still paying her rent. So if she was worrying about being cut off, she would have pleaded the fifth. And this is what I'm saying by playing both sides of the fence. Nah, she's not gonna plead the fifth. Well, I don't know if they gave her immunity or whatever. We'll find that out usually on doing cross-examination. But I'm telling you now, as we sit here and talk, understand that the reason why they did what they did with this audio was to try to, once again, the same thing they did with the video involving Cassie. They're trying to sway public opinion. And if you're looking at what's going, because most people are not following along like we follow along during the week, ladies and gentlemen. You got to understand that, right? Most people are getting their news from the mainstream media, right? So they getting the news from the mainstream. So they'll get this, what CNN put out today, or whatever this other, news organization they put out. They're getting that. They're not getting the day-to-day, gavel-to-gavel coverage of what's going on the stand, what she's saying, right? And like I said, as I bring you back to the game, look, bring you back to the game. This is what she said. This is what he said. You better get on your job. That's all it is. Combs said, because you got me on my job. Right? Jane testified that she understood her job was to take care of him and being good to him and making sure he was happy. Pause. And making whatever that entails, whatever you agree to, whatever is part of your relationship. You know what I mean? Okay, and then once again, what they wanted her to say, which included sexual encounters, she said his job was taking care of her financially. Right, that's any man's job, not even just to take care of his woman financially, but it's his job to take care of his family financially. So when somebody say, I'm on my job, yo, my man, he on his job, player. You know what I mean? He handling his business, right? That don't entail what they trying to make it entail. We in our community, we know what that means, but we do understand what they were doing, right? And they don't need us to justify whether that was right, wrong, or indifferent. No matter how we feel morally, now we playing judge, jury, and executioner. So now let me tell you this. So if you or anybody else at this particular time feel like, you know what, I met this girl and she live in Texas and you live in Arkansas or let's say California, and y'all talking on the phone, y'all met through social media, Instagram, whatever, you fly her out. And y'all get together, go out to dinner, y'all have sex or whatever, right? And then she go home and she be like, I really didn't want to do it and blah, 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 this, that. I'm going to call the police because I felt like you X, Y, and Z. Dude, you getting locked up for sex trafficking. Right? That's a possibility that you could get locked up for sex trafficking because they're basically saying that Daphne, Joy, as well as Cassie are victims of sex trafficking. And it's like, well, hold on. She said what? She said, how can you be a victim? Listen to me, ladies and gentlemen. How can you be a victim when you said, I had promised him an all-star party? What's that? I'd bring in the top 3 guys all in the same night. Huh? You understand what I'm saying? So this is the thing that I'm saying at the end of the day, right? And then you get to the final straw that breaks the camel's back and everything when you go here. You say, well, what does that mean? Hold on. The prosecutor asked her, what? He started paying your rent? She said, yes. Did she turn it down? Nah, you know what? I can handle my own bills. I'm good. And you got women out here that do that every day because they know what the ladies know. If I'm lying, ladies, I'm flying. Because what women know? Women know I don't want to be obligated. If I don't want to be around him, if I don't want to do what he say or whatever, he ain't paying my bills and he ain't doing none of that. Nah, you know what? Oh, it's like even in the club buying a drink, right? Somebody dude come ask you, what you drink? And I buy you a drink. She like, nah, I'm good. No, thank you. Because I don't need you following me around all night. You know what I mean? Thinking that I got, you know what I mean? That I got something to, you got me your drink now. All of a sudden, she owe you a kidney or a liver. You know what I mean? Or part of her spleen, And from that perspective, because some guys like to do that. That's just how they operate. They lead with their money. They lead with their accomplishments, right? Instead of just being regular and being like, yo, you know what I mean? You know, coming how it comes. And it's like, okay, cool. She like you. You make her laugh. You funny and all of those other things, right? That's what it is. But like I said, you see right here, in right here, what it say? He started paying your rent. Yeah. And she ain't said no. She was all with it, right? Who is paying your rent now? Sean. And she up on the witness stand for the prosecution, and that man still paying her $10,000 a month in rent. What else did he pay for, my teeth? Hold on, they had a love contract? Oh man, she violated that a long time ago. So what's the penalty? If they got a love contract, what's the penalty? What you mean? Sean didn't like my teeth. I got new veneers. He also paid to furnish my house. My allowance just didn't do it. She couldn't keep a budget. I used 3 credit cards. And he paid for it all. Just like he paid for his girlfriend before her, Cassie. So, yeah. So the misconception that, oh, what he meant by get on your job and what she took it as that, oh, he could cut me off at any time. Well, for the last 6 months, he been in jail. He ain't gonna cut you off. So, like I said, and for whatever reason, people want to look at it and say, well, he didn't cut her off because of this. Well, he didn't cut her off because of that. The fact of the matter is that he didn't cut her off. You can come up with whatever reason that you want to as to why he didn't cut her off. As a matter of fact, once again, what they don't know is that Daphne Joy and Sean P. Diddy Combs was still an item and were still seeing each other prior to him being locked up. Maybe he loved her. Maybe he got feelings for her. Maybe he got feelings for, her son and whatever, and be like, you know what? I was with her. I love her. You know what I mean? Just like he said to Cassie, there was an award show that he was on, and it was like, name some of the people that you want to think that helped you through. And he had named Cassie. You know what I mean? You got to understand what I understand overall. Like I said, their personal business, Diddy should have been locked up for domestic violence on Cassie and all of the things that he did. Once again, the police were called 4 times. 4 times that I counted since this trial has been going on. And not once did Cassie want to reveal what happened to her. The Bungling girl, the girl Bana or whatever her name is, Bana, once again, when she, listen, you got to understand, the gravy train this was a gold gravy train. This wasn't no regular gravy train, man. This was a gold gravy train, right? Free drugs, free perks, backstage tickets, private jets, Turks and Caicos, France, yachts, all of these other things, right? So even the Bonner girl, right? Testified, yeah, Diddy hung her off the balcony and all of that. She went under cross-examination and Westmoreland blew her out the water. She didn't remember nothing. And also the prosecution came in with the date that it actually happened and that they alleged that Diddy held her over the balcony. And then when the defense cross-examined, what did they do? They went to the metadata on when the prosecution said that it happened, and they pointed out the fact that when the prosecution said that it happened, Diddy was not even in LA. And who laid the foundation for that? The prosecution laid the foundation for that date that they stuck to, that they said this happened. But then when the defense came in and proved that Diddy wasn't even in the state of California when it happened, it was like, oh. And then you see the prosecution come back and was like, they tried to fix that. You couldn't. They created the date. They just didn't think that, what they believed, bungling so much that they didn't really think that could be refuted. And it was. And it proved that the young lady could possibly be, not that she was, but she could be possibly lying. What about the knife attack? What happened with that? The bungling said, I don't know. But when you was under when you was on direct examination, she remembered everything. You see what I'm saying? This is what's going on right now in this case. Right? Like I said, they established, Daphne was like, yeah, they asked her, well, who would pay for, after these situations or the freak offs was over, who would pay? She said that Diddy would pay. But we heard Daniel and we heard the Punisher said that Cassie was the one that was paying. You understand what I'm saying? So I understand what the government's trying to do, basically, give everybody immunity. But they haven't, listen, the cold part about this game is this. What they have not done, and I heard Michael Francesi and Sammy the Bull Gravano talk about it, right? What they haven't done is this. Listen, they haven't established the fact these people, were you involved in the conspiracy? Because the girl Bongling said she was buying drugs. She wasn't part of no sex, nothing, whatever, right? She was buying drugs. Okay. The other assistants, she was buying drugs. Mia claimed something happened to her, and she was texting Diddy, "I love you," sending, like I said, scrapbooks, making scrapbooks and talking about, you're a legend and all of this, that, and the other. And he supposedly done all of this horrible stuff to her, right? The same with Bungling. Asked her, well, weren't you at this, when was the last time you seen Diddy and Cassie? She said January 2nd, 2018. Where were y'all at? At the one hotel in Miami doing ketamine for like 8 hours. Like, hold on, you mean the same guy that you said that you was scared of because he held you over the balcony? You with him 2 years later getting high and doing ketamine for 8 hours? And the defense asked her, so you must really wasn't that scared, was you? She said, I guess not. So all of the things that are being said are being debunked on cross-examination, right? Just like the admittance of any kind of abuse or SA, they call it, sexual abuse or whatever, right? You got to understand what happened with that situation. What happened with that? Mia, right? They asked her, well, you said that Diddy did X, Y, Z to you. You never said anything about that until you got your lawyer this year, right? Till you sued civilly, right? When you first met with the prosecution, you didn't tell the prosecution nothing about Diddy sexually assaulting you, did you? She's like, no. She said, when was the first time that you mentioned that? She said, it was after I got my new attorney so that I could sue Diddy civilly. And they were like, what? So you mean to tell me she came to testify in this case, right? And when she met with the government for the first time, right? She said nothing, absolutely, positively nothing, right? About sexual assault, but now she was up on the stand testifying that Diddy had sexually assaulted her? Hold on, ladies and gentlemen, that wasn't the first time. Remember, she had sued Diddy back in 2017, Mia. She sues him back in 2017 for some employment issue, right? She sues, and she said, well, the lawyers asked for $10 million. Ended up settling for $400,000. She got $200,000. The lawyer got $200,000, right? Now, at that particular time would have been the opportune time to talk about any kind of sexual assault, right? Because it had happened, according to her, when she's testifying here in 2025. It had happened, right? She said nothing about it when she sued in 2017. Why? Because it didn't happen. Right? She said, I was going to take that to my grave. Like, hold on. I thought you was going to take it to your grave. What you doing here at this trial? What you doing up on that stand testifying right now? Because you said you was going to take that to your grave. It wasn't about that. They seen that Cassie filed a lawsuit and everybody started lining up. Right? All of these young ladies supposedly say that they're friends of Cassie's. The Mia would say she was a friend of Cassie's, but she didn't tell Cassie that she was messing with Diddy, and Diddy had so-called sexually assaulted her, and she was hanging out with Cassie damn near every day. What? You mean to tell me there was no awkwardness, there was no feeling of betrayal or none of those things? Think about it. I just need you to think about that for a minute, y'all. And so understanding that she never mentioned anything about anything sexual until she hired her new lawyer who's going to represent her in suing Diddy civilly for now what she calls sexual assault. when in 2017, she didn't mention it. When she met with the prosecutors for the first time or any time when she met with the government involving this case right here, she still had never mentioned anything about being sexually assaulted. This is all evidence that's popped up in this case, ladies and gentlemen. This is not just what I'm telling you. So I'm like, wow. So if we're dealing with credibility, what they always like to use, depending on what side you're on, right? They'll tell you, well, she seems, or he seems like a credible witness. You know what I mean? We're talking about credibility. Bonna, the young lady, same thing. She met with the government. She never mentioned anything about sexual assault, ladies and gentlemen. As a matter of fact, Tyrone Blackburn, the same lawyer that's the lawyer for Little Rod, right, was her lawyer at one time. She said that Tyrone Blackburn was actually putting stuff in the lawsuit, in the demand letters that actually did not happen. And she fired him. And Westmoreland asked her, well, was sexual assault one of those things? She know what she said? I don't remember. Oh, I don't know. What do you mean? You just testified that this guy, Diddy sexually assaulted you. Well, how did he do it? Well, he lifted me up underneath my arms when he put me over the balcony. So you mean like a little child. You pick a little child up underneath the arms, you hold him up over your head like that, right? That's what he did? And so she equated that to somehow being sexually assaulted. Guess how much money she wanted? She said Cassie got 20, so she needed 10. Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. Cassie was Diddy's girlfriend for 10 years. These people were at best acquaintances or get high buddies. They was get high buddies. Not Mia worked for Diddy. You know what I mean? From that perspective. But the young lady, she was get high buddy. Right? They would give her the money. She would go cop the drugs. There was really no job she held that was significant around the situation that Diddy had. How do you get to a $10 million number? And of something that when she came to cross-examination, she didn't remember. Well, what was the knife? Did he come in the house, grab the knife, go in the drawer, grab the knife? How did he get the knife? I don't know. I don't remember. Like, oh, wow. Well, you just told the prosecution that he threw a knife at Cassie. Cassie threw the knife back. So my thing is, like I said, once again, when we sit down and we talk about facts, like I said, as to what came out with this tape today and how they're basically trying to basically frame it, right? Or get the public believing that this is some kind of highway, that this is going on. It's simply not that. Like I said, I always tell people, man, look, do your research. Do your research. So Daphne and Joy say, hey, he could cut me off at any time. But we find out and we know for a fact all of what she's saying, cutting off and all of that, simply not true. Because the last thing we would expect the answer to be, the answer to be, right, to this question right here, he started paying your rent? And she said yes. And who's paying your rent right now? Right now, as you sit up on this stand testifying against this man, who's paying your rent right now? And it is a guy over there sitting in the defendant's seat. Now, how do you think the jury reads into that? Like, oh my God, there is truly no loyalty in the world. There is truly no gratefulness in the world, right? Amazing. And like I said, and the fact that she would also say, look, and this is another thing, because this is how it plays on people, and that she would also say, not only was he paying her rent, but look, that she would also say this. Look, what she say? She said, Jane testified that starting in 2023, Combs began to give her $10,000 monthly allowance, which she used to pay for her home and for her son. That's not even Diddy's son. Amazing. Amazing. So like I said, boy, it's a hell of a world, man. It's a hell of a world. Yeah, cut creatives, like you said, do your research. A lot of people ain't doing their research, man. You said they're the Sue Diddy Dynamite duo. Feli Speaks, what's good? Ray Johnson. Arius Williams, Cut Creatives, Annan Lee, what's good? SLLE 44, Arius Williams, James, Ray Johnson, Feli Speaks, a KMU TV, Zamir. Yeah, like I said, even like I said, when you think about a lot of situations where it's like they not even here, they're only hearing what they want to hear. And people use their own person. The crazy part about it, situations like this, most people overlook is that people use their own complicit biases, man. You know, people use their own biases. They don't like you, then I don't like the guy. You know what I mean? And so therefore, I'll vote against him. I don't mind sending him to prison. You know? No, Jane Doe is fine. Diddy didn't have her doing anything. She volunteered. It was consensual. He didn't have her doing nothing. Like I said, she left, went on vacation. Like I said, once again, where does a person get held accountable for their behavior? You know what I mean? Where does a person get held accountable for their behavior? If they want to hold Diddy accountable, like everybody else has to be held accountable, but not if you testifying for the government. You don't have to be held accountable. We're going to give you immunity. You know what I mean? And you won't be charged with nothing. Just tell us what we want to hear. And like I said, once again, who's the person to decide whether you're lying or not? Westmoreland asked Bungle in that situation because she was given immunity. Who's the person that decides whether you're lying or not? The government. Who can charge you with perjury? The government. But if you're testifying on their behalf, then you're their friend. It's just as simple as that, man. So the deck is stacked, right? You know, if you don't testify, we're gonna charge you. How you want to do it? You know, and most people, you know, now it's not even snitching no more. It's like, yo, I'm getting the deal. I want to go home. So all of the time that they was doing what they're alleging to be illegal, right? Which I really haven't seen anything as of yet, was consensual. They was getting high, enjoying the plane rides and the yacht rides, and now all of a sudden something happened. Like, man, I need immunity. For what? Well, you know, I was buying drugs for him, or going buy drugs, right? Okay. I mean, you had a drug habit. You was a dope user, right? Right. Okay, I was a user. I was getting high. You know what I mean? You know, we don't know who on the jury get high. We don't know who in that courtroom get high. You know, the same people, some people in that courtroom judging people, and they get high. They smoke weed, they do whatever, they drink probably too much. You just don't know until you know. And then you look at it a different way, like, well, damn, how you sitting here judging this person? Because it's all a mask. It's all something that people put on to be like, hey, you know what, you're a part of the jury. You got to judge here. You know, and hopefully you can get a fair judgment and people who see through the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? We say, Ray Johnson said, straight game when my dad was alive. He told me a dummy can learn something if you be quiet and listen. Absolutely. Yeah. Or just pay attention to what they're not saying. A lot of times we pay attention to what people say instead of what they're not saying. It's like, oh, okay. You know? And that's the game that they've been playing forever. So you got to understand that. But yeah, I just wanted to bring you guys that, man. I had to, you know, I was thinking about what you know, what was being, you know, pushed across the internet. I was like, oh wow, they going on that one. They taking the snippet from that, and like I said, 95% of the people who are listening to that tape, that's being reported right now, talking about the job, haven't heard the testimony in the court, so they don't have a cross reference, you know, to say, okay, well, that's what was said right here, but this what was said right here, and in fact, he's still paying her bills. So what do you mean cut her off? And a lot of times, you know, they say that the person's testifying, but they don't tell you who they testifying for at that particular time, right? But like I said, it is what it is. So like I said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys tuning in with me. Like I always say, I appreciate y'all guys. We're gonna be back Monday morning early, and like I was promising you guys that the interview with Donald, brother Donald. Let me see. The interview with brother Donald Richardson, Behind the Walls with Tupac Shakur, ladies and gentlemen, is now over on the Art of Dialogue. Like I say, I appreciate each and every one of you guys for coming in on this Saturday. Y'all could be anywhere y'all want to be right now, but I appreciate y'all tuning in. Shout out to Zamia, Kishana, Arias, Feli Speaks, Anthony X, what's good, Cut Creatives, King Deuce, Tootie Gardner, who's that? It's She, Kathy Rose, what's good, SLL, E44, and everybody else that tuned in, ladies and gentlemen. Your boy DELRAY. The book is on Amazon, Straight Gang. And check out the interview over there on the Art of Dialogue, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.
Life is like some cards. It's not what you dealt, but how you play it. Play each situation correctly. I remember they used to laugh at a brother.